Hello everyone and welcome to the HobbyGuard. Have you ever felt like you've bitten off more than you could chew? Have you ever felt like you started something that you felt a lot of excitement when you were starting it out, and at some point during the process you just felt overwhelmed and you were scared to see it through, or perhaps not just scared but unwilling to see it through? Have you even perhaps ever felt the excuse brewing up in your head, in your mind, that, well, you're just a perfectionist, right? That's why you're not finishing the thing. That's why you're not working on the thing, because you're just waiting for the right time. You don't like to do imperfect things. You want the work to be at the level of your expectations, and so you will wait again for the right opportunity or for your skills to be at the right level, and so on and so on. Well, unfortunately, according to people smarter than me, people who actually went to school and studied smart people things, that is just an excuse. And that is that is a problem that I've myself had over and over in my life. Through my entire life, actually. To the extent that I've, over the years, really looked into it and just have tried to but I've acquired, again, over the years, just nuggets of wisdom here and there on how to deal with the process. And in some areas of my life, I should say, to great success. I've achieved this to great success, particularly professionally. But the things that I always end up leaving on the side are my actual passions, things that I don't just do for monetary value, my hobbies, if you will, quite fittingly to the channel. So, with that being said, it's also been a while since I last worked on one of these long-form videos where I'm just drawing. Everything is a trade-off, and I've just been so busy. I just have had so much going on in life, just like everyone else, to be honest. We all know how life gets. It doesn't matter if you're an adult. We all have responsibilities. Younger people have school, if they're lucky, to go to. I absolutely hated going to school at certain points in my life, and when I did like going to school, it wasn't because of school, it was because of my friends, not school particularly, but that's a whole other topic. So, in this video, I want to talk about that a bit. How to progress, how to keep going, how to keep grinding, and how to see the value in it. How to not give up, to not quit your quests, how to not give up on your progress, and how to not use perfectionism as an excuse. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is some of you might remember this drawing that I've been working on for months, by now. It's a Warhammer fan art, inspired, I should say, in one of Warhammer's short stories from the Horus Heresy. I've talked a lot about it in the past. The Keys of Hell. It's about the Iron Hands, which I absolutely love. Sorry about that. English is hard for me sometimes. And you can see right away that this drawing is very almost oversaturated with detail, like just in the sketch. You can see here on the sketch behind how much I was planning to draw. And it was very fun to do the sketch. The sketch for me is like when that idea brews up in your mind, like, oh, can you imagine that if I did this would be so cool, this would be such a great story to tell visually. And then you actually started doing it, and it just takes forever, and then you see some progress, but it's not enough, and then life gets in the way, and some things you like more than others. For example, yesterday I had to redo this whole part of the sketch here because it used to be a tech priest, and that didn't really make a lot of sense, so I changed it for a servitor. I just think it's more grim and dark that way, and I could talk about the lore reasons because of why actually that makes more sense, but I don't really think anybody cares. But yeah, it's also been a while, as I was saying, since I made these sort of long form podcast videos. I've been so busy that I chose to dedicate my time creating content to content that is perhaps a bit faster to make and that gets more engagement. Not that I don't put a lot of effort on the other type of content that I've been making, and not that I don't enjoy it. I certainly do enjoy it, but the thing is, it literally just gets more engagement. But in a way, that is partly also me giving myself excuses like, oh yeah, no, I can't draw and I can make like podcast drawing because it just takes so much time, and we're all going back to the excuses, right? Like, not as many people like to watch those videos. Like, of course they won't. Like, I don't really watch videos of people just talking and drawing. Sometimes I do, but how often is that, right? Usually I'm busy. Usually I'm doing things. I'm doing things. I don't even watch videos all that much anymore. I just listen to them because I have to keep my hands busy all the time. If I'm not working, I'm doing chores. If I'm not doing chores, I'm playing a game. And if I take in any content, well, obviously doom scrolling aside, which is a plague that is affecting a lot of people, if I take in any content, it's usually just via audio, right? So that is not to say that I don't think this content has any value. Quite the opposite. I want to produce more of this, and I want to talk more about the things that I have learned over the years, good and bad. Me using myself as both a good and let me rephrase that. Both using myself as a good and as a bad example. So going back to the topic of the video today, I wanted to finally get back working on this drawing here that I've been working on for months now. And yes, I did some work yesterday on the sketch, and that was very fun, but still not quite as much progress. It's just kind of editing, modifying the things that I already had before I actually proceed with the kind of inking part of the video. And I stared at this drawing for like 20 minutes. I just stared at the screen for like 20 minutes without knowing what to do, without knowing how to proceed. And that little voice in my head started just whispering evil things to me again, like, no, you screwed up. You are way over your head here. You're nowhere near as good an artist to keep drawing that much. You don't have the time. You're moving soon. You have work. You haven't even filed your taxes for the year yet, which I should really do at some point today, actually. And other voices, other things that those voices in my head would whisper were like, well, you shouldn't even make content out of it because people don't even watch it, and you're just wasting your time more and more. You're just being more unproductive, and so on and so on, and so it goes, you know, the whole deal. But the thing is, I've learned over the years, don't get me wrong, I have started many projects that I had held dear to my heart at the time, and that I just gave up on at times. Eventually I just left unfinished eventually, and it is always heartbreaking. I always end up feeling like a failure, but that doesn't go for all projects. Some things in my life I have achieved, some great successes I've had just by not caring about those voices, just ignoring them and just keep going, and eventually things just kind of work themselves out. And if things don't go as you expected, if things don't go according to your expectations, then usually the time and effort and dedication that you put into a love child, not literally, but like a project that you hold near and dear to your heart, usually that pays off in one way or another. Sometimes it is in the form of you actually finishing your project, but sometimes it just pays off in different ways. Sometimes it's just experience, sometimes it's people that you meet through it, sometimes it's just the networking aspect. Sometimes you learn that you actually didn't like that sort of lifestyle, didn't like that sort of effort, and you just want to apply your time and effort in different ways, and so you end up knowing yourself better, And don't get me wrong, when it works, you actually end up learning a lot as well. It's kind of a win-win situation where when you apply your effort onto something, you're gonna get something out of it eventually. When you discipline yourself to go through with something, you're gonna get something out of it eventually, again, one way or another. And that has been the case in my life many times, in many different areas of my life, and yet I keep making the same mistake where I just quit. I just leave projects unfinished, which is not always necessarily a bad thing. You know, the world also needs people with ideas who are perhaps great at having ideas, and maybe those people that are great at having those ideas are not always the ones who are great at carrying them on, at seeing them through. And that's when another group of people come in, right? Some of the greatest achievements, artistic or otherwise, in the history of mankind have been a team effort. Sometimes, again, you meet the right person at the right time through not what you can do, but also what you can't do, right? For example, let's say you're a content creator, but you hate editing like me. I don't like editing my videos, I'm sure you've noticed, because I don't like the sound of my voice. Ironically enough, you might think with how much I yap on these videos that I actually love to hear the sound of my voice, but that is not true. I did work on another YouTube channel for years in the past, and it ended up being very successful. I would have considered it extremely successful, but I would go back and edit every single video, and the end result of that is I just ended up being completely tired of listening to my own voice. So perhaps if you're a content creator that just likes to produce the content and just doesn't like editing, well, perhaps you can meet an editor, right? Either you look for one, or maybe you network properly and you find the right person eventually, or someone who would want to invest, and they're like, hey, I really think you have a lot of potential and I am a very good editor, so why don't we work together, or whatever it is. The point is the payoff. I think that there is always a payoff when you put the effort into things. And so how do you proceed when you're in way over your head? Because that's how I was feeling today, right? Like, how do I carry on with these? How do I get out of this jam that I put myself into? I have so much stuff going on the canvas here that I don't even know how to proceed properly. And well, the answer to that I found is just do anything. Luckily here I have a very good visual example of how I do this, but if you zoom out and you look at the whole picture, you just immediately, like literally the whole picture, I just feel immediately overwhelmed. But when I zoom in, all the big problems just become that much smaller immediately. And ironically enough, right, because you could say that all the small problems just become a lot bigger, but in a way, when you zoom in into things, you have an easier time of getting things done in the long term, right? Let's say that you have, again, this is just nuggets of wisdom that to you maybe not, but to me they have been very useful, wisdom that I've acquired over the years. And perhaps you have a lot of trouble, like I had at some point, just cleaning your room or cleaning your house. And if that carries on over a long enough period of time, it just becomes a self-propelling kind of snowball that just keeps growing and growing and just getting worse and worse until the problem becomes that much bigger. And then, since you didn't have the inclination to get it fixed and get it over with to begin with, you end up with a much bigger issue in your hands, right? I think we have all felt these, when there's just a pile of clothes on that chair over there, and there's just the trash, and then there's stuff all over the bed, and so on and so on. And so one of the things that I learned to do is just do one thing first. Focus on the one thing. Obviously, I also have crippling ADHD, which sometimes makes it a bit harder, because you try to focus on one thing and that just leads you to another, and that just leads you to another, and so on and so on. But wait a minute, something here ain't quite right. The perspective is all off. Let me change that real quick. Anyways, but the thing that I found out for me, and this is just like a specific example, but this is just an analogy for life, is just do the bed. You know, just start with the bed. Oh, but there's a lot of stuff in the bed. Just throw it in the chair. Do the bed first, and then you have a nice, clear rectangle of clear space that you can then work with, and then you can put stuff back on the bed, and then go do something else. You know, get rid of all the laundry that was on the chair, and then you move on to the next thing, and to the next thing, and to the next thing. Another piece of advice that actually my sister gave to me, my older sister, one time, and I found, let me just give my hand a break here, my wrist. I'm not supposed to be drawing with my wrist, but it's harder than it looks. I have a bunch of bad habits. But my sister told me one time I was feeling very overwhelmed. I was younger and I didn't even have that much going on, but it felt like a lot. I was kind of drawing in a glass of water, as we say in my language. It's a common saying. And she told me, hey, sometimes it's like untangling your earbuds. But back in the day, headphones used to have like these ones, these earbuds here. There used to be a cable that used to connect to your Walkman or Discman or your iPod or whatever, MP3, whatever it is you were using back in the day. And those things, if they spent a second in your pocket, in your pocket, in your pants or whatever, they would just immediately get incredibly tangled. And she's like, if you look at the whole thing, you just start yanking in one direction or the other, then you give in to despair, and then you never end up fixing anything, and then you just go crazy because you think that you find yourself in a problem that you cannot get out of. But if you just focus on fixing one little tiny thing at a time, eventually if you focus on untangling one little knot, so to speak, one little loop at a time, eventually it just becomes a lot easier and a lot easier and a lot easier. And if you actually just keep going, that problem that seemed huge at the start becomes that much simpler eventually. It just becomes basically, just with inertia, you end up getting through it. And again, that is an analogy for a lot of things in life. I work with hydraulic equipment and hydraulic hoses and all sort of equipment and all sort of hoses, like from heavy duty hydraulics to also like pneumatic, you know, DOT, air brake kind of stuff, grease lines. And some of those, let me tell you, they do like to get very tangled, and it is way worse than the headphones back in the day. These things just wrap onto each other because some are like not very flexible, and it's like the hose or the tubing was made to just end up in the worst position possible, and it can easily take you, and we have obviously like hundreds and hundreds of feet of that stuff, so sometimes we have like rolls of 500 feet of like air brake DOT certified tubing that just gets completely tangled, and you just give in to despair. You just want to cut the whole thing in half because you know it's going to take you 10 minutes to get through it. Actually, you don't know it's going to take you 10 minutes. You feel like it's going to take you forever. You feel like you're never going to be able to do it. And you think like it's all over. You feel like it's all over. But then you have a customer that wants the like some tubing made out of it or whatever, and so you just can't give up, right? And I took that piece of advice with me, and I gave it to one of my younger coworkers back in the day. I was like, hey man, listen, because he just kept yanking and pulling and just throwing the thing and just getting completely overwhelmed by it. And I just remember that thing that my sister told me about the headphones, and I was like, dude, just focus on one small loop at a time. Don't look at the whole thing, just look at one little tiny thing at a time. and then instead of taking us 20 minutes of fighting the thing, it just takes us maybe 5, maybe sometimes 10, but we get it done. And once you're done with it, you feel like like you just went out to catch a breath of air after being drowning in deep waters. And I realize like that is very specific and very silly for some of you, but it actually applies very well to a lot of things in life. Again, just like this drawing, right? I am able to zoom in, and honestly I don't even know like how I'm going to proceed with a lot of these, because when I was making the sketch I wasn't very precise in many ways. I was just like, yeah, I'll figure it out, you know? I'm just wanna put the idea here on the canvas, the general idea, and then I'll future me will just figure out the specifics. And so I assured myself because I am now future me, and I have to deal with the things that past me started thinking it was gonna be all easy. And it really can be easy. It can even be enjoyable. It can even be productive if you approach these things with the right mindset. Now let me take a pause here, because I actually have to think through for a moment how to proceed next. Alright, sorry about that. I just had to give myself an idea of how to proceed, because I'm not a very like mechanically inclined person, ironically enough, because I do work with, like, as I explained, hydraulic equipment and so on. But I'm obviously a more creatively inclined person than mechanically. But anyways, not that one is necessarily against the other. But regardless, I just wanted to figure out like how was the most logical way to proceed here with this design, because again, I just screwed myself in the past and I just threw some lines in there and I was like, oh yeah, I'll figure it out. But I had to make sense of some things, like how is this little servo skull here actually floating around? Is he hanging from somewhere, or does he have like anti-grav, whatever they're called in Warhammer, like those little things that just push them around? Because there's different types of servo skulls in Warhammer. And so I came up with this design, which will be a nice template to follow as I continue the drawing. It obviously doesn't look great now, but again, hopefully it'll look good in the future. So, back to the topic that we were discussing. Do not give in to despair. There is a phrase in the Warhammer show Angels of Death. There is kind of like a standalone episode. I forget the name of the episode actually, but it's sort of a prequel to the captain of the ship, the Sword of Val, the ship in which I think it's a battle barge, perhaps, the Sword of Val, the one where the Blood Angels are at the start of the show, the Blood Angels that we follow throughout the show. And the ship mistress of the ship, she apparently came into power, came into that position, was elevated to that position after the previous captain of the ship passed away under very violent circumstances by a Drukhari raid. At least if I'm remembering correctly, it's been a few years since I watched that, like 3 years. But when the captain falls and the remaining officers are figuring out what to do, one of the officers wants to flee, and he commits the crime of cowardice. He says, no, we have to run, we can't win this fight, all is lost, our only option is to get out of here. And he starts to panic, and he's like, we have to run now. And when, I forget the name of the ship mistress, but when she doesn't want to go along with it, he pulls rank, and he's like, I have been master at arms, or whatever his rank was, on this ship for far longer than you, and you should follow my orders, and I am pulling rank, and we are fleeing, we are escaping, because we are doomed and lost. But the captain of the soon-to-be captain, this other officer, she actually sees a way through. she actually sees a way out. Sorry about that. She actually sees a way out of the conundrum that they find themselves in at the moment. And she pulls out a gun on this guy and she just takes him off. And she says some words that I really like. Of course, I don't remember them exactly, but it's something to the effect of, those who give in to the darkness of despair don't deserve to are not worthy of sailing the darkness amongst the stars, or something like that, something to that extent. And that really stuck with me, like, those who give in to the darkness of despair are unworthy of sailing the void, of sailing the abyss, of conquering the stars. They're unworthy of facing even further challenges, because of course in outer space, the final frontier, there is nothing but darkness out there. And if you cannot even keep your own darkness, the darkness of despair, in check, then how do you expect to command an entire ship, to command others to do so bravely, courageously, and effectively? So the thing is, you know, when we watch things like that in fiction or in books, like whatever sort of fiction, shows, books, you might think like, oh, that guy was a coward, and we sort of like make light of that. But through the years, I've come to find that we all have those voices in us. We all have that coward guy who maybe just based off experience, he has the excuse like, I have more experience, I've seen this before, trust me, we are doomed, we have to get out of here, we have to give up. And that's when you have to shoot him. Shoot your own boys. Obviously, don't shoot your own boys necessarily entirely. I don't know how you could possibly do that, but at the very least, put him in its place, you know? Say thank you for your service, thank you for your wisdom. It has been taken into account, but since you are giving in to despair, you are unworthy of commanding this ship, of commanding this vessel that is your entire person, your entire being, because you, my friend, are a vessel for an amazing, unique consciousness, one in a billion, well, in an 8 billion apparently, but you are a once in a lifetime occurrence. You, with all your fears and insecurities and all your virtues and your vices, all of you, with all your values or lack thereof, all your experiences, your happy experiences and your traumas as well, with all of your love and your hate, you are a unique being, and you are traversing the cosmos in this flying rock, accompanied by many other people who depend on you, who count on you, who need you. This world needs you. This world needs your uniqueness. What it doesn't need is cowards. So don't give in to that coward. We all have that voice, but that is not you. That voice is unworthy of commanding the vessel. Again, it might offer some good advice, it might be the voice of caution here and there, right? It might be a voice that tempers your expectations, which is good in many ways. In many situations, it's good to have low expectations and to not focus too much in your expectations, or to not judge your success or your performance in some task based off of like the expectations that you previously had. But again, I'm not saying that's not a good voice to have, but don't give that voice command of your entire being. Shoot it if you have to, restrain it, sit on that captain's throne, and show some courage. Look for the way out. Look for the way through. Not to run away from your problems. Not always. Sometimes, yeah, a tactical retreat here and there. But whatever it is, as long as you're doing it with courage and not out of cowardice, not out of just excuses, then you will get something out of it. Then you will come out of it a more mature person, a stronger person, a braver person, obviously, a more confident person, a more self-sufficient person, because you will have proven to yourself that you can get out of a bind, that you can deal with problems if you keep your cool, if you just relax, take a breather, and perhaps focus on the small things, not get overwhelmed by the big picture. By the way, this is not to say like looking at the big picture is bad. Again, it all depends on how you do it, right? If you look at it with a cool head, then that will also reveal things to you. But if you're already being like falling to the darkness of despair by taking in the whole thing, just focus, take a deep breath, and focus on those little things that you can work on. The same goes for if you collect Warhammer like myself and like to paint Warhammer. The same thing goes for that gray pile that we all have, the gray pile of shame. To me, it's not a gray pile of shame, it's a gray pile of potential. Honestly, I heard another YouTuber say that. I would give them credit, but I don't remember where I heard it. But I thought it was pretty cool. But yeah, that gray pile of potential, because it just means that someday, at some time, you already have something that you can work on. The thing is, you have to work on it. If you just feel overwhelmed, like, oh, I have so many miniatures, I am done for, I'm never gonna finish them, I might as well just sell them, you're gonna rob yourself of so many cool things, so many cool experiences that you could have, because you're giving in to despair. I mean, if you need the money, sure, sell them, but that's not what I'm saying here. What I'm saying is don't sell yourself short, right? Because when it comes down to it, it's better to just paint any miniature than to paint no miniature at all. When it comes down to it, it's always better to do something, not always, but obviously within, I leave it to your own interpretation here, your own common sense, but it's better to do something than to do nothing at all and just freeze in place. So I think that's another situation in which these things apply. And with that being said, I don't want to keep boring everyone for much longer. This video has been long enough, but take a look at that. We already made some progress on that beautiful servitor. So before I end this video today, I will continue making this type of videos. I will be moving soon, so my content production schedule will be all over the place, and YouTube heavily punishes the machines that decide our fate, the algorithm that decides the future of all my efforts hates it when I become lazy and I stop producing content, and it punishes me. Oh, but it was my birthday, or it was my wife's birthday, and we wanted to do something together. I don't care, human, you must produce content, otherwise I will not show your channel to other individuals. So yes, my content production schedule will be all over the place, so maybe you'll see a bit of random videos on the channel for a while, but I'll try to make more of these sort of long form videos, because an added characteristic of them is that I can make clips, and these long videos actually become a lot of smaller ones, and so on and so on. So I might have to do that for a while, but thanks for all the support, everyone. Thanks for watching. If you watched this till the end, awesome, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. Let me know in the comments down below if you actually made it through, and let me know what you think. Do you think I'm wrong? Do you think I'm right? Do you think I just have it all wrong and this is just just Reddit? I've never been on Reddit, but Reddit armchair psychologist kind of advice? Or do you think I'm onto something? And also let me know how I can make these videos more entertaining for you. Do you find these sort of drawing videos entertaining? If you don't, that's fine. I totally get it. But whatever it is, please just let me know in the comments down below. Thanks for coming, thanks for watching. Ad Astra, and remember, there are no female custodies.